The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's special webinar. What does the CDC's latest requirements mean for transportation? We have a great panel set up for today. We'll get started in just a few seconds here to give a few more folks time to log in, and I'll be right back. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this next Best Practices webinar. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations here at Transfinder. It's my pleasure to welcome all of our attendees. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your days to join us. We know it's important not to waste a second of your time. This topic today is an important one. It's in the news all over the place, the CDC's latest requirements. Well, what's that mean for your transportation operation? This is part of our Best Practices series that we've created in partnership with the New York Association for Pupil Transportation, a great partner. Before we get started into the discussion, I want to invite Transfinder's President and CEO, Antonio Civitella, to join us to say a few words. Tony.
Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, I guess, right? I mean, anybody like losing track of days like me here? But the good news, it's toward the end of May. It means Memorial Day weekend is up. It's around the corner. To me, that's when a lot of people in the Northeast open up their pools. Some people that are a little more south here, maybe they've already had their pools open. I don't have a pool, so if you guys want to invite me over, I'll be over there. I'll wear nice swim trunks, and I'll even bring my own towels. So, but what does that also mean? May, it's graduation. It's around the corner. I know some of you are all gearing up. There's a lot of things going on. Are there going to be in-person graduation? Is it Zoom? All those things are, they're coming up, and I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit about that today. But speaking of graduation, a lot of colleges in the region here have either celebrated graduation this past weekend or they're coming up in this weekend. So it's been really a big topic. I've been really talking about this for about a full week now with the Transfinder team. I'm really thankful and grateful and honored. I've been asked to give a commencement speech at a local college here. It's called Clarkson University. So I've been sharing with Transfinder team on a daily basis about the different addresses and the commencement and quotes. And there was actually a cool quote that I quoted the other day about the Princeton University, June 2nd, 2013. It was given by Ben Bernanke, the former chair of the Federal Reserve. And during his speech, he said something kind of cool, and I think it's so appropriate. He said, "Nobody likes to fail, but failure is an essential part of life and of learning." Pretty common, but this is where I love the most. If your uniform isn't dirty, you haven't played in the game. Perfect, right? I mean, what does that mean? So I keep telling the Transfinder teams, like, hey, is your uniform dirty? Guess what? It's going to get dirty. It has to get dirty because you're playing in the game. So I thought it was perfect here, right? And now we're talking about everything we're doing here, right? About what's going on with CDCs and what's going on here with the state of New York. And also what you've been doing. Let's face it. The panelists and everyone here that are attending, your uniform has definitely got dirty the past 14 months or not. If not, what have you been doing, right? So we know that. So those are the kind of cool thing about how you apply that, right? Your uniform has to get dirty. If you're going to play a sport, you're playing football, and you come out and your shirt's all perfectly still clean, you didn't play. You're not in the game. And I know what happened in this industry. You all got in the game. And I know how your uniform got dirty, and it was worth getting dirty. And we all know about that. So it's kind of cool that I know it's the approach we're talking about, but this is important, right? What have we done? And now, of course, let's talk about these important topics we're going to be covering today. We talked about the budgets. We're going to talk about the CDC guidelines and really preparing for the summer schools, and of course, it's fall coming. I know it's May, but fall is going to fly by. By the way, I know NYAPT is going to be here soon. I think it's in July, which I'm so looking forward to seeing many of you. Hopefully that still happens in person. I'm really excited about that. So can't wait to see that. But I feel like I'm talking too much here. The webinar is definitely being recorded. Some of you guys are asking, where is it? Remember, there's a place on our transfinder.com. It's best practices page. It's being recorded, so you can always watch this or share with your friends. It's always there. But we have a lot to cover. I want to introduce the NYAPT Executive Director, Dave Christopher. Dave, how's your uniform?
Tony, my uniform is shredded and dirty. Let me tell you. That is a great story. I love that.
By the way, some of our uniforms don't fit exactly what they used to 14 months
That's
ago.
true. That's
So
true.
I just want to
True
see
as well. Yeah.
but definitely dirty, and thank you for everything you guys have done, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you for your partnership, Tony. These webinars are a great way to get information out. I missed last month when we couldn't do one, but I'm glad to be back. Yeah, you mentioned the NYAPT Summer Conference. Just to put a plug in, it is in person at the Saratoga City Center and the Hilton in Saratoga. I hope everyone can make it. We're getting a lot of good feedback from folks who are just excited to get together again. So, and as every day passes, we seem to be more and more assured that it's going to be an event where, you know, a lot of the restrictions we've lived under for the past several months are starting to loosen up a little bit. So the last good news was the capacity restriction has been lifted. So we're good to go. You can bring additional people, Tony. We had you down to one, and you know that was possible, of course. So bring your folks and let's get together and have a great conference, a great learning experience, and see our friends again. So thank you for doing this today. This is going to be an interesting discussion. I'd like to introduce a whole bunch of dirty uniformed people who have worked much harder than I have, let me tell you. First, Bill Harvey, Transportation Director and Security Director at the Honeoye Falls School District in the Rochester area. We also have Jason Callahan, who is the Transportation Director at the Amityville School District in Suffolk County. And last but not least, Brian Trask, who just clicked on. We were nervous he wasn't going to make it. Brian has got the exceptional dirty uniform in that he's the Transportation Director, the Facilities Director, and the I think he's the computer person at the school district. Well, he's a busy guy, so welcome, Brian. And you know, we're looking forward to having this conversation today about the CDC guidelines, the budget situation in our schools, and whatever else comes up. That's the interesting part. There's always something else that comes up to discuss. So I'll turn it over to Rick, our very able-bodied moderator. Rick.
Thank you so much. And yes, I think we all look really clean today, but we all have really dirty uniforms underneath. So thanks so much. I want to thank our panelists. David, of course, thank you for your leadership. You just showed amazing leadership during really is a super challenging time. Bill, Jason, Brian, and again, Tony, thanks so much. We're looking forward to a great discussion. I want to make sure that our attendees realize we have a really good turnout today, by the way. And I want you to know that while we can't hear you, we want you to be part of this discussion. So there is a question section there where you can either put comments in, or you have a question for the panelists, or you want to have something addressed. And we will get to those as soon as we can. If you've been on any of our webinars, you know that we try to get those as quickly as possible. We do have a long list of questions, but yours are definitely a priority. Before we get into the CDC guidelines, since we're like fresh off of school budget votes, I just wanted to ask if we could do a quick vote. And Bridget, by the way, today is the one who's running the show behind the scenes is Bridget Moore, and today is her birthday. One of my presents to her is I will not sing because I get kicked out of places when I start to sing. My wife will not let me sing the happy started off because I throw everybody off. But happy birthday, Bridget. Bridget, could you bring on the poll question for today? And the question is, did your school budget pass? And while you, our attendees, are answering this question, I'm going to throw that out to our panel. So just in any random order, Bill, Jason, Brian, how did your school budgets go this week?
Well, I'll start off. We'll go in that order if you want. And first of all, thanks for having us. And it is interesting that we're having this meeting right on the heels of the budget vote. We were very pleased in our community, and I know in the surrounding communities that we had overwhelming support for our school budget, and that included, in our case, a proposition for school bus purchase. So everything passed very soundly.
Very good. Next up, I guess we'll say Brian.
Yes, thank you also for having us today. We appreciate that. And yes, we also had a successful vote this year. We did not have a bus proposition up, but we did have a budget proposition and a capital project proposition up, and both passed. So good things are coming. Super,
excellent. And last but not least, Jason.
Yes, our school budget passed with flying colors, and we are prepared to move forward.
Great. Bridget, can you bring up the results?
And while we result, I'm going to play a little game.
What do we have here? 89. According to the school, thank you. According to the New York State School Boards Association, 99.2% of school budgets passed. So that's pretty amazing. Bridget, next question up real quick, and then we'll get into our discussion on CDC. And some of you guys, Bill, I know already addressed it a little bit. Is there money in that budget? So Bridget, if you could bring out the next one up. Is there money in your budget for spending on transportation? So if you could take a moment on that. And Bill, you said there is money in there for you guys. Jason and Brian?
We were successful in getting the funds approved for the purchase of school bus, and we were fully funded as requested. I wouldn't say there was really anything extra. I think we're going to rely on some of the additional funds that will be coming in the form of grants, recovery funds from the COVID situation that'll help maybe some special projects, but we're fully funded and included all aspects of transportation and vehicle replacement. So we're very, very pleased with that.
Okay. And Jason?
So our extra, which would be, our PPEs and things like that, usually come out of our building administration budget. It doesn't come out of our budget. So the budget that we have now will be utilized for the upcoming year. So there's nothing that we had requested that was extra at this time.
Okay. And Bridget, can you bring those results up? And what do we got here? Let's see. All right. So 69% said yes and 31% said no on transportation. Okay, Bridget, you can bring back up the panel slide. So I just want to let you know, if you do have additional funds for your operations, you want to spend it on innovative routing software, for instance, or parent apps or drivers apps or something, I do know a guy that can help you with making wise purchases.
Hey, Rick, if I could just jump in terms of funding for transportation, important thing for transportation people to know, a local school district, Bethlehem Central School District, had a proposition passed to purchase 3 electric powered vehicles, and also a separate proposition for the infrastructure. So this is big news for those of you who are interested in electric vehicles. This is one of the first school districts in our state who's getting involved in this. So something to watch. There will be a panel discussion on electric vehicles at the summer workshop. The NYS Summer Workshop in Bethlehem Schools will be part of that. So that's one of the very first, again, in the state to get involved in the electric vehicle arena.
That's great. Thanks. Dave, while I have you on, what do you think is leading to the optimism or the school budget votes voting like so overwhelming? What do you think is happening in schools across the state?
Well, I think schools, got a lot of federal support this year. I mean, going into the budget process, we were all very nervous that budgets were going to be significantly cut and staff laid off. In fact, we had local school districts here in the Albany area that laid off several hundred people because of thoughts of severe budget cuts coming forward. So because of the federal funding that our federal legislators were able to provide to school districts, it helped us turn the corner, obviously. The concern with that, obviously, is that when you apply that money to your school districts, we talked about this yesterday, don't create legacy costs, because that money is not going to come back in future years. We're confident. They talk about the fiscal cliff in terms of, creating costs that stay with you over the years. How are you going to fund those 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 years out? So that's the, for every good thing that happens in life, there's always something to be concerned of. And of course, this is one of those.
No good deed goes unpunished.
There you go.
Bill, I want to get to you, and then I realized we didn't go around the room and talk about a little bit about yourselves and your district. But Bill, you said something, just to stay with this theme real quickly, about yesterday. You mentioned the idea that if your district does have funding for transportation, and even if it doesn't, you said this is a critical time to get a seat at the table. Can you just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that and how to wiggle your way in there if you're not at the table yet? Yeah,
and I think that's very true, that you need to try to get yourself a seat at the table when you talk about those funds. And, in our district, we've got over $4 million coming to us, and it's proportionate by size. Bigger districts have more money. That's over a period of 3 to 4 years. That money is obtained through a grant process. So the federal monies go to the state, and then the districts apply through a grant, and then that money will be disseminated back to the districts. And, I had a brief Zoom call with my central leadership to make sure they knew that, I wanted a seat at the table. There was things that we needed for transportation, and I don't expect that, a big chunk of that will go to us, but we don't need a big chunk. There's just some things we need to do, and it's moving fast. I will tell you, I met with Deputy Superintendent this morning early, and she was telling me that the first round, the grant deadline is June 15th. So believe me when I tell you, people in your districts are talking right now about how they're going to use that first round of funding. So make sure you weasel your way into that, if you will, and make sure that you are the squeaky wheel for transportation and get what you need if you can.
Very good, thank you. So Bill, while you're on camera, can you tell me a little bit about you, your role, and a little bit about your district for those maybe who haven't seen you in your many appearances on our webinars?
The Ed McMahon of these webinars, right? Yeah, so I'm Bill Harvey. I'm the Director of Transportation and Security at Huntington Falls Lime. I've been in the business 36 years, I think. So it's here at our district, we cover a lot of square miles, but we're not very heavily populated. We got about 2,300 kids we're transporting right now. Nice kind of fringe community between rural and the urban setting. So we're on the very southern part of Monroe County. Really a great place to work, great place to live, and very supportive community. So really enjoying it here.
Thanks so much. Jason, tell me a little bit about your role and also about your district.
Okay, so I'm the transportation coordinator for Amityville School District, which is in Long Island, Suffolk County. Amityville is located almost in the middle of the island, geographically speaking, more towards the southern border. We service more than 4,000 students. We have a great partnership with our contractors, our communities, and I have a great relationship with the administration, which helps me to coordinate the routes to make sure that they're safe first and foremost, and that they run efficiently. And I've been on the job, this particular position, for about 9 months.
Super. Thank you, Jason. And Brian, last but not least.
Yeah, Brian Trask. I'm the Director of Transportation at Untitled Central School. And as he mentioned before, I'm also the Director of Facilities, Technology, and I do the data coordinator. I do the state reporting for the school. So I wear many hats on different days. I have a couple different offices in the different buildings. So I'm kind of, when we talk about being at the table, as Bill said, it is very important to be at the table. And for me, I'm at the table, you know, on different fronts. But the interesting thing is, it's very interesting the way all the departments kind of tie together. And I think being one person in charge of many, is I see a lot of the overlap there, and I'm kind of in a unique position to see that where a lot of people probably don't. And believe it or not, we're asking a lot of the same things on the transportation side as we are on the building side, as we are on the technology side. You may not know that if you don't sit there, but our needs are very similar when it comes to the pandemic. So I am a big supporter of being there at those meetings, making sure you have a voice and making sure you get involved. So thank you for that, and here to help.
Thanks so much, Brian. You know, just to kind of set the table, David, because you have the statewide perspective. I know the others on this panel do as well, but you know, in terms of the CDC guidelines and the changes that came about last week that were announced, and it's still fairly fluid. I know you have a committee that's involved in looking at these things and kind of trying to, you know, digest it. What's your take on the latest guidelines?
Yeah, the CDC came out with new regulations or new guidelines in March, and we convened the NYS work group. If you recall, back in the spring when the pandemic first hit, we convened a work group to just talk about, you know, what we could do to provide safe transportation based on a lot of just judgment of the group, because there weren't a lot of guidelines available. And we produced a white paper based on what we knew at the time. And we've looked at that a couple times throughout the year, and we met on April 27th and kind of talk that over and try to, you know, apply the new guidelines. Essentially, those new guidelines apply to, you know, the in-school experience. And, you know, in short, we kind of decided that, you know, the school transportation operations really weren't going to be impacted by those new guidelines. And most importantly, the school transportation professionals in our state and, you know, across the country were doing such a good job transporting kids safely that we concluded that really we would not make any changes this year, because we were disinfecting buses properly, we were social distancing properly, we're doing all the things that were proper in keeping kids safe. So that was, in short, very short discussion about the work group conclusions. I don't know, Bill, you chair that group. If you want to add to that in any way, certainly do that, but that's the short story.
No, I think you summed that up well, Dave, and it was interesting to go back through. I think we kind of expected that we would find more changes needed, and we didn't. So, yeah, basically it was a sound document then, and it's a sound document now, and the changes that have occurred through the CDC have really not had a significant impact.
Yeah. You know, just for the group, so people understand this, when that was first written, you know, I wrote it, but it was only from the input from that group that I wrote exactly what they gave me in terms of input. Most of that was just common sense thoughts that they asked to put on paper so that they had some kind of guidance based on very limited guidance from any agency at the time. And a lot of the things that they came up with are still in place today, all across our state in various school districts. So, you know, you talk about a group of people that have never dealt with this kind of experience before ever. This is something that's unprecedented. They thought this through, and they came up with some good processes to keep kids safe and to keep those wheels turning, because if you recall, the school buses have been running ever since this happened back in March. We're delivering food, you know, supplies, materials, keeping drivers safe, keeping staff safe, and then ultimately transporting kids safely.
Anybody else want to add? Jason, Brian?
Well, no, I think they covered it all, and that document was very useful at the beginning, and we still refer back to that. If there's a question when the new guidance come out, we revisit that reopening plan or that reopening document to make sure that it's still relevant. And I think we did a very good job putting that together because it has sustained throughout the year. So, kudos to everybody who helped put that together, because I think we put together a pretty good document when it started.
Bill, yesterday I think you did use the word agita, though. That does create a little bit of confusion. That there some people do get confused a little bit about, like, how does it apply to me? Parents who are reading the latest news may think that some of that stuff translates to the school when it may not. Correct?
Right, even the staff, right? So and that's what you said. What has that meant for you? What did the CDC, well, especially the recent changes with masking requirements and the trends there? And you said, what have you gotten out of that? And I said, agita, because there's a state of confusion. Nobody, even staff, they're like, do I still have to wear my mask in here, or what? So it's clarity is kindness, and we're lacking a little clarity. So my recommendation to everybody would be and our superintendent put it in our communication yesterday, that everything remains the same with masking expectations at the school district. And it's just easiest to stay the course there now.
Yeah. And now you sent it to us right after we did a dry run yesterday, for everybody who's wondering why we make references to yesterday. And that was a really clear, newsletter that he put out about expectations and stuff. We've done, as Tony, who was on earlier, our CEO, talks about not, you can't over communicate during these times. So, we had a discussion yesterday about the changes too, about how many students you can have on a bus or not. I want to get a kind of a sense of have you had changes over the course of this year? Do you do the one kid per seat and then change to, and then, so basically, how have you changed your approach? And then also, what goes into those capacity decisions? And I'm just going to start with Bill. We'll go right down the line. Bill, Jason, and Brian, and of course, David, feel free to jump in. How have things changed for you this year, and what goes into those decisions?
Well, we haven't changed a lot actually here this year. We brought back, all of our kids K-6, and then we've been on a 1 week on, 1 week off, and the off week they're remoting in for the 7 through 12. So we set in our reopening plan, we set a maximum capacity of 2/3 capacity, and then we assigned all seats to maintain social distancing to the greatest extent possible, right? When practical, all those types of terms. But we have maintained that capacity. We have not exceeded it. We do even less on sports trips. We were at 50%, and we haven't changed. We haven't moved off that mark all year, and haven't been in a situation where we, would have exceeded it and needed to make a bus route change. But social distancing, like for private parochial and some of the special ed, no reason for those kids to be piled on top of each other. And the mask wearing and the ventilation. So we've stayed the course literally, Rick, all year long.
Very good. Jason.
So the same thing, we haven't had a lot of the challenges that we anticipated. We've had complaints here and there. Maybe a bus may have had 1 or 2 extra students that are not in the same household, who maybe have happened to sit next to each other. We address that right away within 24 hours. That's addressed sometimes by the end of the school day, because sometimes it may happen in the morning. But we haven't had a lot of complaints with that. I can count on one hand how many phone calls I've received from parents concerned about potential overcrowding. I'll be honest with you. I said our partners are, they've done a great job of managing that, even with the driver shortage. So have we had some past our 50% capacity? Of course we have. But the way the buses are lined up, and we use cohorts, every other day, it's helped us tremendously, and we keep track of it. As far as if something, if a large bus, we got 35 students, we may need to look at that. But what do those 35 students look like? Are they in the same household? And we usually address it within 24 hours. So we haven't had a lot of those challenges in terms of the safety of the kids and the safety of the drivers.
Yeah, it sounds like also, we talk about you can't over communicate, but it's also speed. So Jason, you really highlight the fact that you can't let things linger either too long. Right. So addressing those concerns when they come up quickly, that's great. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. We started out our year with a 50% capacity, And we've been able to maintain that. In fact, at the very beginning of the year, we were well below that because we were at a completely hybrid schedule. And then in March, when we brought our K-5 back, every day, we did get closer to that 50% capacity on some of our buses. We stayed the course, as Bill would say, with filling the seats, individual seats first, and then double up near the end of the run when you're required to. So it was the shortest amount of distance for the shortest amount of time, and really shoot for that under the 15-minute window if you do have to double up. And we also had to do some load switches. We had to move some students from one bus to another just because of capacity concerns. So we just had to do a little bit of moving around from one to the other to make it work. But with a little bit of effort, we've been able to manage it, and we've been able to. The kids have been great. The kids really have been rock stars through this whole thing for our district. We haven't had a lot of problems. They've been very understanding, which is not something we anticipated. We anticipated some problems at the beginning, and we have not found that. So I'm grateful for that. So we've done well with that.
Brian, you discussed yesterday a little bit that you can vary from the CDC guidelines, but it involves having agreement from your stakeholders. Can you share a little bit about that? Who are the stakeholders? You mentioned that you convened multiple times over the course of the year. Share a little bit about that, and then the flexibility that's given you as a result.
Well, every district had to do a reopening plan this year. That was a directive from the state. Before we could open, we had to get an approved plan through the state. So every district had to put this document together, and we had to meet all the criteria. There's a bunch of boxes we had to check. And we chose to have several subcommittees tackle different areas we had a health and safety committee, we had an instructional committee, we had basically a non-instructional committee, which was support staff, was bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria, and we all tackled different sections of these of this document. So our stakeholders in that case, we had unit members, we had a couple of bus drivers, we had some custodians, we had school nurse. We actually, on my health and safety committee and the non-instructional, we had a representative from our insurance company there, sometimes mostly via Zoom. And then also we had some student input and some parent input. We asked parents to be on every committee because we really wanted to make sure that we weren't missing something. So the stakeholders are really a vast group of people, depending on what the topic is and what section we were working on. And kind of like the white page that we did here at NYAP, it was the same kind of thing where we took our recommendations back to the superintendent, had the larger committee, 30 or so people it was. We all brought our individual recommendations back, and we basically put the plan together and submitted it to the state, and it got approved. So it worked well, and I think it was important to do that because we got everybody's aspect on that.
Anybody else have Brian, you said that your insurance company liked it so much, like your plan so much, that you guys are taking this on the road a little bit. Well,
yeah, they like how we structured our meetings, and I'm sure many districts probably across the state did something very similar. But they liked the way we structured our meetings, and anytime there was a change, either within the district or within the guidance, we would reconvene. Just a couple of weeks ago, reconvene the transportation and facilities subcommittee just to review the new guidelines, say, do we need to make a change to this? And I know my business official was contacted because they were very happy with the way we did that. And she actually joined them in doing a panel discussion much like this to talk about how we did that plan. So I think it worked well.
Great. Bill, Jason, anything on your end in terms of using task force, making adjustments so that you're kind of you're customizing this to your district's needs? Because we know every district is different. Even if it's a neighboring district, every district can be different.
Well, I'm actually on our district's emergency health and safety committee. So we meet, we try to meet once a month. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made, that would be addressed at those meetings. And a part of that group would obviously be our building administrators, superintendent, assistant superintendents, myself, our buildings and grounds director, and 2 or 3 representatives from the school board. who obviously live in the community. So we have, a variety of folks that bring their ideas, ask questions, and, we make adjustments if necessary. We've had to make very few adjustments. Our main focus is on actually emergencies and, evacuation drills, and how I participate in that from the transportation perspective. But in terms of our moving forward during the COVID pandemic, again, we've had very little to change in terms of our policies. And as the saying goes, sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's how we keep moving forward.
Very good. Bill, anything?
No, I think that sums it up. It's important to include the stakeholders, and I think we were all, A, we were required to do it, but B, it was a good idea to do it, and we brought everybody back together in March at a district level and reviewed our plan at a district level as well. So just would note that that's the one thing we did add to our reopening document from NYS was a process to walk people through. If you did need to change something in your plan, how would you do that? Making sure that the transportation folks involved the district level to make sure that all the boxes were checked, as Brian says, as working through the submitting that to the portal. So
I have a question from Elva, who says they're transporting 13 students per regular size bus. So basically it's one student every other seat. Her question, does the CDC say it's okay that we transport one student per seat? Anybody want to take?
the CDC recommended that it would be one student per seat, skip a row, and another, so one student per row, right? So they gave the seating plan, which would put you at 12 or 13. That was a recommendation. And as much as we tried, we did not get any better defined guidance from New York State, which basically said, look, you've got the guidance, develop your plan, submit it, see how your community feels about it. And so I think that while it is guidance, and to every extent possible, and I think both Brian and I, and I'm sure Jason wrote that into our plan, that to every extent possible, we would adhere to that social distancing, but that when we couldn't, we would have assigned seats. It would be for the minimal amount of time, as Brian stated. Everybody's wearing a mask, ventilation on the bus. So yes, technically that's following their recommendation to a T. We made a conscious decision to follow that recommendation to every extent we could, and when we couldn't, how would we amend the process for that?
Dave, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I agree with Bill wholeheartedly. There are some school districts out there who followed the original CDC public transportation guidance to the T, and they are currently transporting 12, 13 kids per bus. Many more school districts reduce their load levels by a percentage, 50%, 30%, whatever. And, again, put that in their reopening guidance, and have been successful. So I think the school districts that have those very limited numbers of kids on buses are going to have to look at their plans and see if that's going to work for them going forward as kids resume in-person learning, which, hopefully they'll be doing in September. And, give some thought to revising those, because you can't begin to transport, your normal loads when you're looking at 12, 13 kids per bus. And there's a lot of proof in the pudding, if you will, out there of school districts that have got, higher load levels than the CDC public transportation guidance, yet not back to normal, if you will, and they're successful. We're not seeing transmission rates on school buses. So again, what we're doing out there is good stuff. So learn from each other.
Right. Yesterday during our conversation, Brian, you brought up a really important issue. It was about, as you're dealing with BOCES, for example, and you're crossing over county lines. And so, you may have a policy on your district, but then a county may have rules that are different from the neighboring county. Can you share a little bit about that? And Jason and Bill, and obviously David, please feel free to jump in. But how do you deal with different criteria or different rules that apply for one county versus another county, and keep people from not being confused, and just having a systematic approach to that?
Well, it's been very challenging in that regards. We're right in the triangle of 3 counties. We're the edge district on 3 different counties. We're in 2 counties, and then the other 3rd county is 5 miles down the road. And every county has different rules and different capacities and different directors. And it's been a real challenge with our quarantining this year, because if the students are at one of the BOCES campuses, they're in a different county than they live in. So there's not been great communication between the counties. So some students have been contacted, some of them have not. Sometimes we've been contacted, sometimes we've not. So we kind of had to take on a role of doing some of our own contact tracing to mitigate some of that and work with the counties the best we could. And it's taken some resources for sure. Our nurses have been good. But for example, publicly, a lot of the schools in our BOCES region have brought back their students K-12 4 or 5 days a week. Our county has still stuck with the 6 foot of distance and have not supported the 3 feet. So we could not do that. So we are the only school in our BOCES that stayed on the hybrid schedule. So publicly to our parents, it's been difficult because they want to know everybody else can do it, we can't. And we have to go with the county regulations. So communication, honestly, is the biggest key. And sometimes they're tough conversations to have, but we've had to put the memos out. We've sent school messenger calls. We put it on our Facebook. We put it on our website. We've done the best we can do to get the message out there. And I think that's important to do that going forward, is communicate with those stakeholders once again.
Great. Jason or Bill, you guys deal with that issue as well?
For me, like you said, Rick, communication. So I talk to my neighbors, my district neighbors that are around me and all the way out east. Suffolk County is very large county. Every district has similar ways of doing things, but everybody's not the same. But we talk to each other. We talk to each other at our Suffolk County NYAP meetings. We communicate. I pick up the phone and I'll call a neighboring district. Hey, what are you guys doing? Or they'll call me. So we communicate with each other in terms of, as our buses overlap, some of us are using the same contractor. We talk to the contractors. We make sure that, we're all on the same page so that we don't have those challenges of crossing. Let's say my bus is crossing to Nassau County because we have folks on the edge that live in, East Massapequa. So we make sure that we don't run into those things because we're constantly talking to each other about, what are the challenges? What is your district saying that you need to do in terms of the busing and capacity and things of that nature?
Okay, great, thank you. And Bill?
Can I just add one more thing real quick? Sorry, Bill. You mentioned your local NYAP chapter, and I'd like to tag team on that. We have a very active local NYAP chapter. And many of our meetings this year, we have spent quite a bit of time because they are in the different regions that I was just discussing. So they've been invaluable units. We usually have 20 to 25 people on, at a meeting. That has been a tremendous resource. So for any of those that are on there, NYAP is a great resource, both at the state level and at the local level to tackle some of these issues.
So Dave, if somebody wants to be part of one, I don't know, is everyone already part of one automatically, or should people contact you if they want to have that same experience that Brian just shared?
No, you have to sign on to be a NYAP member. Go to www.nyap.org, and thank you for that information, Brian. I was going to parrot the same information. Join NYAP. I would tell you that it's certainly the conferences and the learning experiences, but the fact that you meet people that know so much about this business is huge. That's probably the biggest advantage of joining an association like NYAP and your local chapter. Join your local chapter, because there's always something you're going to learn from folks who've been doing this for a while, and even new people. I mean, we have so many new people in this business. Every day it seems like I'm getting communication from someone who's retiring and moving on. And when we do have a conference, again, you're going to look out and you're going to see a lot of new faces. So it's absolutely important to network with each other, so you you know what's going on in the business. And, you know, this is a big, school transportation is a big business, but it's also a very small community. And it's very helpful to communicate with people and network with people who know know about the school bus business. In your school districts, typically you're the only person that really understands yellow buses, and you're kind of alone in that regard. So, you know, to network with your neighbor or other transportation professionals is a huge advantage to you.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Bill, anything about in terms you could talk about the NYAP and also just about the crossing county lines and dealing with different rules.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo Brian's comments on the county lines. I'm in the exact same situation where our district is right in the corner and we encompass 3 counties. Luckily, all 3 counties are pretty closely aligned, but it does create an additional layer of challenge for us when we have school buildings that are in 2 different counties. But physically, like one building in one county, another building, so the contact tracing is different. And like Brian, we ended up our district doing a lot of our own. We would get a letter putting somebody on quarantine and releasing them, you know, within a day of each other. So they were overwhelmed, those health departments. So, but and then as far as the NYAP and our local chapter RAT, so we had actually what we called was like work meetings, where, you know, normally we just have a business meeting, but we just convene meetings for the sole purpose of talking about where we're at, reopening, and that throughout the year. So that was very helpful, and we all just learned so much. It's a networking and sharing. If there's ever a time to be involved, and I don't care whether it's in New York State or wherever you're listening from, you know, to be involved in any, I have never in my career, I'm a little embarrassed to say, been a member of NAPT, but I signed up at the beginning of this, and I've gotten a ton of information from the national chapter, or the national organization, as well as, you know, I've always been active in NYAP and in my local chapter. But we are in a changing time. We don't even know what it's going to look like. Are we going to be having like public forums when we go back to school? Like, we're committing that everybody's coming back. Well, what's going to be different? Are the guidelines going to change? You know what I mean? With like, where are we going to be at? There's still a degree of uncertainty with resuming school in September. It's almost easier with our ESY and our summer programs. It's going to kind of be easy peasy because we have fewer kids on a bus. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing now. Then you add in the electric vehicles and the need to possibly change things on our buses, whether it be air purification, cleaning processes, and new automated ways to do that. There is so much going on right now that now more than ever, I would encourage folks to get involved and reap the benefit of the resources.
It's good. This ad brought to you by NYAP. No, no, it's
Really just, you know, and I hesitated to say too much because it's not like I'm on a recruitment mode, but what I am saying is you need to meet your neighbors. You need to meet people in this industry because they're the ones that teach you how to do this job. You don't go to, you know, university to learn how to be a school transportation director. And you learn it from others. I did. You know, I started in the 1980s, and if it wasn't for people who've been doing this in the 60s and 70s, I wouldn't have known even where to start. So it's very valuable that you do that networking.
Go ahead, Bill. You're going to say something?
Yeah, look, and I'll turn that around a little bit, David. That, like Dave said earlier, one of the panelists said that, like, we are the people. We're the only ones that really understand it. Okay.
Right.
And we owe it to our district and our communities and our staff to be the expert, right, to the greatest extent possible. So if we're really going to do our job the best way we can and best serve our students, communities, district, and staff, you know, you got to be on top of the game. And so I just wanted to say that it goes both ways, right? The better you are, the better you can serve and deliver your services.
And I've also just, you know, I've been with Transfinder for 7.5 years, and I will tell you that the industry is so tight knit. You know, it's very tight knit. They really do care. I have yet to see somebody that feels like it's just a job, you know, and very open to sharing ideas and just wanting to, you know, if they have gleaned something that's a good tip, they want to share it quickly. So I've always been very impressed. I want to talk about a couple quick topics before we wrap up. I can't believe how quickly the time is going by, but we talked yesterday about changes in cleaning your buses. And that this and I'm going to go back to Bill, but Brian, you also mentioned something regarding a CNN story you saw. I want to get to that as well. But there's been some changes in what you were doing initially that now maybe there's been a little bit of a change about what might be a best practice. Bill, can you share a little bit about that?
Well, initially, I think there was, to a great extent, a degree of uncertainty as to how the main mode of transmission of this disease, right? So this illness, it was surface contact cleaning, high contact surfaces. So we're wiping down, we're doing all that cleaning, and then we're spraying our buses with a chemical that was safe and used in schools and hospitals and everything else to disinfect the bus. And I personally came to a point where I thought maybe we ought to be backing off a little bit on some of the surface cleaning and the wiping down, and maybe instead of disinfecting the bus, if you will, twice a day, maybe once a day. I know districts that were doing it at the end of every week. But what came of it with our health and safety committee, which I chaired for the district, and I had several doctors and medical specialists on there, they suggested that you just stay the course with what you're doing right now, because yes, it has been proven that maybe there's a little less chance of contracting COVID-19 from surface contact, but we also have drastically decreased the incidences of other illness. So in essence, overall, we have a cleaner bus. So while we came very close to kind of backing off and amending our cleaning processes, in the end, we're staying the course on that as well.
Okay.
Okay,
so I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Now, we felt the same way. And, with all the guidance out there, everything has been, school districts have been doing a great job. And it's really hard to say that we haven't been effective because there has not been a large spread within schools. So we're kind of in the same boat. We're not going to make a change until the school year's out. And then we're going to revisit what we're going to do going forward.
Yeah. The CNN story you made a reference, you said that maybe incessant cleaning could create harm. And I was thinking about that later. I tried that approach on my mom and cleaning my bedroom. It didn't work. I was like, Mom, over cleaning it's not a good thing, but it didn't work. So anyway, but you guys are seriously going to be looking at this at the end of the school year. I know one of the things we talked about yesterday was we're not changing anything until the end of the school year, and then we're going to revisit and see what we want to bring in and what we want to alter. Correct?
We are having a workshop this summer on that very topic, cleaning and disinfecting buses. We've got a couple individuals who have really looked at that to come in and talk about best practices and where they think the future may be. So another plug for NIAP, but it's an important topic.
That's great.
We don't want to waste resources on something that we don't need to do, but then again, we don't want to stop doing something that's, if it proves to be effective. So it's that what's the best way to go forward, and that's what we have to focus on. Where are we going to be going forward.
Anything else you want to add, Jason, on that?
Well, again, I don't want to change. I think we'll go through the summer with the same protocols and then revisit it maybe in July when we have our usual meetings about other, business issues. But I don't want to change it only because, the kids are safe, the drivers are safe, and we don't want to lose drivers. In this business, you lose drivers, you lose bus monitors, you're doubling routes, you're making major changes. And if it's working so far, what we're doing, let's keep it going for a couple of more months and then revisit it, because if we pull up now and then all of a sudden now instead of losing 5% of our drivers, we're losing 25% of our drivers in bus monitors. That affects everything.
That's good.
And that's an important point, Jason. If this process is working to keep drivers in the seats and kids healthy from other kinds of things, not necessarily COVID related, right?
Right.
I mean, it certainly has value.
Yes.
Well, sticking with the drivers thing real quickly, I know, Bill, you mentioned yesterday you still have a pretty significant driver shortage. I want to get a sense of where you guys are all at as we're kind of looking into the fall, and then we're going to close it out with some final takeaways. And I'm going to start with you, David, on the final takeaway. So I'm giving you that warning right now. What, in terms of, I just lost my, so in terms of driver shortage, Bill, tell me your situation and what you're doing maybe to try to change that, and anybody else, how you're ready for the fall?
Well, we've been in a driver shortage, and we continue to go down a continuous declining slope, getting worse and worse. So I'm very concerned about having staffing where I need it to be for a successful opener. And we really don't have even people applying. So we're taking a look at advertising. We've put together a subcommittee here working with our public relations specialists, our HR department. And I just happen to have some people that are like social media gurus. The guy runs his own business on that who drives bus for me, and another one who's a retired advertising executive, or not really executive, he was created ads. So we have put together some really cool ads, and we're going to target, we've tried to specify a targeted audience, and we're also going to try and increase our social media presence and build a brand, because we have to try and like draw people to it somehow. So I'll share the ads out with you, Dave, as we get them done, but there's some pretty cool stuff we're coming up with, a little different angle.
Anybody out there that's trying to get drivers and you post something on Facebook and you tag Transfinder, both on Twitter and Facebook, I will personally make sure we reshare it.
Oh, nice.
I hope I don't get in trouble for that, but I will personally help reshare that. So just, you got to make sure you tag Transfinder though. Brian or Jason, anything you guys want to add on that front?
We're looking for drivers as well. There's really nothing to add because I think it's an industry problem. We are campaigning here locally. I've been meeting with some local businesses, trying to create a couple partnerships, but not a lot of success, but we are currently looking right now.
Same thing with our contractor. They're looking, they're trying to recruit, they're trying to come up with different ways of bringing people in to fill out applications. And it's tough, it's tough right now. People are very hesitant, but I know they're doing the best they can to try to bring folks in.
Well, this hour has gone by extremely fast. I have a final couple of comments at the end, but I'm going to ask if David, the Executive Director of NYAP, could share his final thoughts, and then we'll go to Bill, Brian, and Jason, and then I'll close this out.
Thank you, Rick. In our latest news and notes, we highlighted a school bus driver from South Carolina who was involved with a person who boarded his bus with a gun and hijacked the bus and took students hostage. And we made a comment that the school bus driver was a hero because he diffused the situation. No one was injured. And this goes on in this business in terms of the work that school transportation people do, from bus drivers to you folks on the panel here and folks listening. You're all heroes in my eyes in that you've dealt with things this year that is unprecedented, stuff that no one has ever dealt with. And we've been very successful with that, or you've been very successful with that. So I think you have to take a step back and pat yourselves on the back, be proud of how dirty you got this year, in Tony's words, right? And prepare for the future, because I think the future is going to change the industry somewhat, or this issue is going to change the industry somewhat going forward, to the degree to which we don't know yet, but it's certainly going to impact us going forward. So job well done, everyone. I've come up with a new topic for the June meeting. I don't want to dwell on COVID, Rick, but I want to talk to you about this after. But I just want to finish the year out by saying job well done, school transportation professionals. Absolutely.
Agreed. Bill.
I would just kind of echo that and say it's a time for celebration as we're 23 days away.
Absolutely.
So it's a tough year that I think every single one of us has ever faced in this industry. And as we celebrate, not only did our uniform get dirty, but so did all of our people out there getting it done every day. So make sure to find a way to celebrate with your people and thank them. Make sure they understand how deeply appreciative you are for them getting it done every day.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Brian.
Kind of hard to follow those two. I 100% agree. The heroes are the people that are on the buses every day. We, many of us drive from time to time as well. But we have great people out there. We have great relationships with our students. Yeah, I can't really add too much to that. So I just wanted to say communication is key. Keep those lines open, parents, students, and administration. And great job to the drivers and neighboring districts, supervisors, drivers. We've all been a great big team this year, and I'm proud to be part of the team.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jason.
So as the newest when it comes to this experience of being in transportation, I have to say, yesterday the Yankees had a pitcher that pitched a no-hitter. But we pitch a no-hitter every day. Our bus drivers and bus monitors have to have a perfect game every day. And there's not enough words to express the thanks that we have for them and just being appreciative and the fact that we have a support system and you guys that support us because it's the end of the year and we're kind of like losing our minds. But we appreciate the fact that, we have a support system. And thanks again.
That's awesome. That is very well said. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank our panelists, Brian, Bill, Jason, and of course, David, leader of NYAPT, for your leadership during these tough times. Tony wanted me to leave a final word also that keep getting your uniforms dirty, which we covered that fairly well here. And he wants to see you all at NYAPT's conference in Saratoga in July. Reminder, we are always looking for stories. Again, it doesn't have to be a TransFinder client, but we want to hear what you're doing to solve problems that you come across that might benefit other districts. So if you could, send those to mystory@transfinder.com. And it might make its way into a white paper, or you might even be a panelist if you are willing. We'd love that. And if you'd like to have a topic you'd like covered as well, please send it to mystory@transfinder.com. Until then, I just want to encourage you to mark your calendars for June 17th. And that'll be our next NYAPT Best Practices webinar. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.